Uh, yes, we're going to talk about sex today. But first, let's talk about abortion. And well, the patriarchy and Yahweh's misogyny will just be popping out all over the place. I hope this video will help dispel guilt in the hearts of those who have left Christianity when it comes to their perfectly fine sexual behavior. And I hope Christians who watch will recognize that they're bigger prudes than their God is. The law of Moses in Numbers 5:11 through 31 states that if an Israelite man suspects his wife of being unfaithful, he can basically have her tortured. If a Jew becomes jealous of his wife, if it comes to his mind that she might possibly be cheating on him, he can take her to the priest to determine what's to become of her. A magical ritual is performed and a witchy spell is cast upon the woman. The priests conjure up a concoction that the wife is forced to drink. Now, the drink contains holy water. Not sure what makes water holy, but that's what they call it. Dust is put in the water, and the woman is required to drink it because it then brings the curse upon her. Now, supposedly, if the woman is innocent, nothing bad happens to her or her embryo. But if she's guilty, she has a miscarriage or abortion, if you will. So the Hebrews put women and their unborn children at high risk of death or at least infection, which might bring death because obviously, at least when this was written, they didn't have antibiotics. We know that dirt contains parasites, bacteria, and toxins, which can easily cause an infection. Besides, this magic potion is to be put in clay pots. And sometimes clay contains arsenic, nickel, and lead. It also contains aluminum, which is toxic. The curse is written on a piece of paper and then washed off into the bitter water. It's hard to tell what substances might be on the paper, and especially back at the time of this writing. Now, you and I know, of course, that if a woman doesn't have a miscarriage when she drinks this tainted water, it probably just means that the dust she drinks doesn't contain a parasite or bacteria. And likewise, when the woman loses her baby, the dust or clay contains something that brings on a miscarriage. The result has nothing to do with whether the woman is guilty. I mean, unless you believe in witchcraft and magic spells, of course. Surely you don't. I know you understand that this dusty water in clay pots should never be foisted upon pregnant women, right? I mean, would you drink such a concoction, especially if you were pregnant? I certainly wouldn't. It's dangerous. And no so called sin we might commit should require us to risk our pregnancy. Right, Christians? Is that right? Of course, no matter what happens to the woman or her embryo, her husband and the priests aren't guilty. It's more important to the Hebrews and their God that a man not have a cheating wife than it is to take care of a pregnant woman. And as I said, whatever happens to the guilty woman, the same happens to an innocent woman. The concoction either causes a miscarriage or it doesn't. But to Israel, it's all about the magical woo woo, and in their minds, only a guilty woman is harmed. Now, I'm sure these people, at least at the time of the writing of this law, thought that if a woman cheated, her child deserved to die. As we know, children at that time were often punished for what their parents had done. But obviously, all of the women weren't or aren't guilty. It's possible none of them were or are. And the poor little embryos have done nothing at all. But hey, we've discovered that Yahweh actually approves of and even commands abortion, haven't we? Abortion is perfectly fine. Who'd have thought? And hey, if it was, or if it is, good for the Hebrew children, then it's good enough for me. But wouldn't you know it? Yahweh's approval of abortion has to do with men's being or fearing their being cuckolded. That stands to reason, of course, because Yahweh favors men and he's always worried about this for himself. Yes, now we're getting to the topic of sex. Oh, yeah, that's Yahweh's big deal, faithfulness of his wife. She has to call him Lord and Master. She has to bow down to his every whim. If not, it's boo-hoo. I'm sad. You're cheating on me. I'm going to beat you to within an inch of your life. Wah! Yahweh feels inferior to the other gods, you see. He apparently isn't well endowed because he whines about how the Israelites went after other gods who had members like that of a donkey and emissions like that of a horse. Bless his pitiful little heart. Yahweh's bride must be totally pure and holy, without spot, wrinkle, or blemish, because apparently, once another god enters her mind, she's tainted. It's okay for Yahweh to enter, but not another god. And the same with men. Once a man, any man, has entered a woman, she's tainted. Now, what does that say about you, man? Seriously. Under the law, even if a woman actually marries another man after her first husband divorces her, she can't go back to the first husband because she has been defiled by the second husband. Defiled by her husband. Now, the man, of course, can have 2 wives and 2 mistresses, as Jacob did, or 300 wives and 700 mistresses, as Solomon did, and that's A-OK in Yahweh's book. But not a woman, no, 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 no. When you were growing up, did you ever hear anyone say that some woman was nasty? If so, as we know, that didn't mean she needed a bath. Well, unless the bath was baptism. It meant she had been sexual outside of marriage. But what's wrong with that? There is nothing inherently wrong with the sex act. It's natural. It's as natural as pooping, peeing, eating, coughing, or sneezing. Well, okay, coughing and sneezing can be nasty, but sex is not. It's healthy and it's clean, not nasty. And sex is the same act whether a person is married or single. So please tell me in plain English why sex makes one woman nasty but not another woman. Obviously, it's not the sex. Marriage is good, right? That means the sex act is good. Nothing is inherently wrong with joining bodies. The only thing that makes us think it's wrong is that a so-called God has put restrictions on when that particular bodily function can be done and with whom. That's all. And it's meaningless. We might as well say eating shrimp is evil, or nasty, if you will. Or picking up sticks on Saturday is evil, or nasty. The only thing that supposedly makes those practices wrong is when Yahweh says they are. But nothing and nobody can truly make them wrong or evil or nasty. They're not wrong. A deity might not like them under certain circumstances. That doesn't make them wrong, and it certainly doesn't make them nasty. Now, you can say, but love must be there. Well, that's debatable, but why can't 2 unmarried people love each other? The truth is, in some cases, my guess is that the unmarried couple are more in love than the old married couple that argues and fights all the time. Some people stay married for the children, some for the economic security, and some because they think they'd be sent into divorce. Love? Not always. So, does that make sex nasty when the couple falls out of love? Even if they're married in the eyes of the law or the eyes of your God? You might say that the girl in the union is hurt when a man uses her for sex and then dumps her. Well, that could go either way, of course. Let me tell you something. That can happen in marriage too. And boy, howdy, does it hurt even worse then. Children need a father? Fine. If a couple wants children, stay together. Nobody's stopping you. But understand that getting married doesn't mean a couple will remain together for the children, nor should they. And again, when they don't, it hurts a lot worse, not just for the couple, but for the children too. Having sex with multiple partners spreads disease. Is that an excuse you want to use? Well, you know what else spreads disease? Kissing, drinking after others, shaking hands. I remember once when the men's bathroom at church didn't have water in the sink, and the men would go in there and come back out shaking hands. I started keeping gloves on my hands until the service started. Oh, and what about sugar? It might not spread disease to someone else, but it sure hurts if you eat too much, and most of us do. Cigarettes kill. Cars kill. And guns? Oh, sorry. Better not mention guns, right? We can share our arms in hugs. We can share our mouths in kisses. We can share our breasts in feeding our babies. We can share our brains in conversations to gain knowledge or emotional support. And we can share our sex organs in love or comfort or pleasure, like we sometimes eat just for pleasure. Or is sex some special magical bodily function that must be governed by special laws? According to the Bible, anything can be wrong if Yahweh says it's wrong at some particular time. But again, just because Yahweh condemns something, that doesn't make it bad. And just because Yahweh approves of something, that doesn't make it good. Aborting a baby against a woman's will is bad. Having sex against someone's will is also bad, of course. But you know what's funny? Christians approve of aborting a baby when a man thinks his wife might have cheated. But if a man rapes a married woman and she becomes pregnant, Christians disapprove of an abortion, even if both the husband and wife want it. So if a woman chooses to have sex with a man and thereby cheats on her husband, Hebrew law says she can be forced to have an abortion. But if she's raped, she can't. At least according to Christians. Well, I have a question for y'all. What does a woman do if she suspects her husband of cheating? What's the remedy for that, huh? Where's your law for the unfaithfulness of a husband, Moses? Got a law for that? Yeah, I didn't think so. Even to ask the question sounds silly, doesn't it? When you think back to the brutality and toxic masculinity at the time of Moses, it's hard to imagine a woman getting it in her pretty little head that her man didn't have the right to cheat on her. What would that even mean? You see, a man can't cheat. You can't cheat on your slave. And you can have multiple wives who are basically slaves. You can't cheat on property you bought for 100 foreskins or a cow or whatever you paid the woman's father for in the same way that you purchase a slave. A man, if he wants sex with another woman, just takes another wife. Or, hey, maybe a mistress. Or concubine, if that makes you feel better about all this. Nothing wrong with having a mistress, right, Christians? After all, Yahweh said he gave David his wives. Actually, he gave David his master's wives. So either multiple wives are fine or mistresses are fine. And yes, that's plural, in case you care. Wives. Y'all are big on parsing words. You know, like how Paul said seed, not seeds, as if there's a difference. The word seed can be plural and is used that way in the Old Testament. It's like the word offspring. In fact, Genesis 35:12 states that the land was to be given to the seed of Abraham. Did only one person get the land? Of course not. Oh, and Jacob brought his seed out of Egypt. Did he bring just one person? Again, of course not. But Paul, being a student of the famous Gamaliel and a Hebrew among Hebrews, didn't know that seed could be plural. So he made a huge deal out of something that doesn't even make a difference, thus exhibiting his ignorance in an attempt to pretend this was a prophecy about the man Jesus. Anyway, again, women are property under the law. They're slaves and have to obey like slaves, just as even the New Testament declares. A man has every right to have sex with his slave. Good old Father Abraham did that, didn't he? And Jacob, of course. Oh, and there's no law about how long a man has to keep his mistress. If he gets tired of her, he can just send her away. Good old Father Abraham did that too, didn't he? And upon the command of Yahweh. Yeah, Abraham was the original deadbeat dad. But hey, Yahweh has his reasons, right? That's always the answer. It has to happen so something good can happen in the future. To you Christians, the end justifies the means. Let us do evil that good may come. Now, please don't give the tired old excuse that in the times of this ignorance, Yahweh just winked. No, he did not. He was meticulous about what he wanted. He made a command about eating shrimp for crying out loud. I think he could have given women some recourse, like he did men if he had had a mind to, but he didn't. By the way, there's no law saying a man can't sleep with more than one wife or mistress at the same time. Orgies, baby. Christians and Jews let Bronze or Iron Age thinking rule their lives. And the thinking of that time was so despicable that it has Christians approving of every foul thing imaginable. Human sacrifice, parents eating their children, which Yahweh himself planned, setting people on fire. And oh yeah, let's throw in the abortion we just talked about. Seems that abortion and nasty sex are the worst of the worst in the eyes of Christians. There they are. Christians' minds are twisted up like a bunch of thin, tangled necklaces, and they don't even know it. By the way, prostitution is not wrong either. If we can sell our hands and our mind and our back and our uterus, we can sell our sex organs. Just as the Bible doesn't condemn multiple marriage and abortion, it doesn't condemn prostitution. Remember Rahab the whore? She was praised by Yahweh. And Judah and Tamar weren't condemned for having sex. Judah was condemned for not giving Tamar his younger son Shelah as a husband. Sounds like Yahweh isn't the prude you all are. He loves watching porn. He sees you when you're sleeping with 2 or 3 women at the same time, and he's okay with that. Yeah, do not even pretend you think a man with 2 wives isn't going to have a threesome. You know he is. Yahweh isn't a prude. He's just a misogynist. Now, I hope you noticed that I talked about these laws in the present tense. Sure, Christians today denounce some of the laws Moses wrote, but they still stand for today's Jews. Today, in the 21st century, the book Jews follow contains this behavior. These are not discarded laws. They're alive and well today for any who wish to follow them. Thankfully, Jews of today have moved beyond some of this craziness. If only Christians would do the same with their book. Yahweh's misogyny and patriarchy have created sexual taboos in the minds and behaviors of Christians that have caused them to condemn what Yahweh himself allows. That's okay for Christians if that's how they want to be. But for the rest of you, I hope what I've presented here will help in some way to give you peace about your sexual behavior that is condemned by people who don't even follow their own book. Thank you all. Bye.